What are some examples of an inventor getting killed by their own invention? The Frenchman who tried to invent a parachute ended when he decided to prove his invention was okay by jumping off the Eiffel Tower. Thomas Midgley Jr., a key contributor to leaded gasoline and the usage of CFC in refrigeration. After contracting polio, he created a system of pulleys and whatnot to help him get out of bed. He was found dead at age 55 after getting tangled in his device and being strangled by it. Not killed, but the founder of Match.com, Gary Kremen, lost his girlfriend to a man that she met in Match.com. Horace Hunley, who killed himself and a bunch of fathers aboard a submarine he built over 150 years before the current whack job. Not the inventor, but rather the owner of the Segway, Jimmy Heselden, accidentally rode off a cliff on a Segway. Max Valier tried using alcohol-based fuel for rockets. It blew up in his lab, killing him. A daredevil has died after crashing in a homemade rocket he had launched himself while filming a program. Rocket crashes desert filming TV, story? Id equals 69,157,084. That Indian lad who was flight testing his own homemade helicopter. Part of the rotor sliced open his head. Fellow glasses wearers, do you keep your glasses on or off during X and Y? Had a fling with a girl from work years ago. She always wore glasses and only ever took them off when we had X. It got to the point that I had a kind of Pavlovian reaction. When her specs came off, I got orny. She figured out what was going on, and sometimes at work she would take them off while we were in the same meeting and just casually play with them in her hands, occasionally glancing over at me. I got those Horace Grant goggles with the strap for tip-off. On. Need to see the screen clearly. My husband typically wears them to a certain point during X, then when he takes them off it's my signal that things are about to get real intense. It's very hot. Off. I like to plunge my face in her breast. Everyone knows a chair made of glass is a bad idea. Off. I take them offy, look hotter, I kinda don't want clean. Off of IT I can see up close but not far away. People who cut off their family, what did they to you? Aunt and the rich part of the family made my mother clean their bathrooms one day when she told them we couldn't afford food. Unlucky situation, both parents unemployed within days, instead of just helping her out. They didn't even pay her. They gave her food they had prepared that day and some potatoes and oil. From that day on, my mother was so hurt and felt so humiliated I decided to pretend they don't even exist. I cut out my mother's side of the family. Her sister and brother made it their personal goal to financially ruin my parents. Then the other sister piled on. All three of them had been borrowing money from my grandparents for years, and when the other sister sold my grandparents' house out from under them, because they can't live on their own anymore, my grandparents were appalled when they were told by my aunt that she was putting them in a home. So they lived with my parents instead, and the other siblings accused my parents of taking their inheritance. They harassed, stalked, and vandalized my parents' property until both grandparents were dead. I will never forgive them and hope their own children treat them as poorly as they treated my parents and grandparents. My cousin had addiction problems and just burned every bridge in our family. Used to be we'd buy him food and stuff he needs instead of just giving him any because it'd go straight to more drugs, but he eventually became so toxic we couldn't even do that. They threatened my life and then reported me to my country's officials for being a runaway. I was 26, a heathen, a whore, and, I wish this was a joke, a witch. All are crimes in my country. Soyuz. I have nothing to do with them anymore. My father was an abusive alcoholic who left us when I was a teen after several suicide attempts. He was clearly not okay mentally. We reconnected in my early 20s, and when I finally started to build my trust for him again, he disappeared. He tried to connect with me a year later when he needed something. I haven't spoken to him since then. Edit. He attempted suicide. I didn't, they did. I decided to leave Mormonism. They chose the church over me. I was 10 years old. I was given to a 34-year-old man to be his third wife. My parents were so happy because it was a great honor to them that I was chosen out of all of the girls there to be with the man that was second in charge. I was smuggled out a month before my 13th birthday, was deprogrammed, tried to end my own life when I was 16 BC of what I went through. I'm still alive. I'll be 49 this year. I don't know if my parents are even alive. My cousin, still a 12-year-old child at this point, lost both her parents and the family had to help her sell her parental house. Long story short, one of my aunts secretly sold the house without telling anyone and kept the profit, $250K, for herself. Everyone thought the house was still up for sale until the real estate agent informed my cousin's actual guardian, A different aunt. That my other aunt had sold the house and he thought it was sketchy. Good news though, my aunt was sued, had to pay everything back, and the $250K was directly deposited into my cousin her bank account, and my aunt received an additional $50K fine she had to pay my cousin and guardian aunt for emotional damage. We do not speak about this aunt anymore. Edit 1. For clarification, how it was even possible in the first place. It is complicated due to my late uncle and aunt's will. My cousin had two guardians after her parents' death. One was her general guardian, Aunt X. My cousin would move into their family home, and that aunt was made responsible for her school, her therapy, sports, social life, etc. The other guardian was my married-into uncle, my evil aunt, their husband. He was very good with finances, so he was made my cousin her financial guardian. Becca used my late uncle and aunt didn't want anyone to take advantage of my cousin in case of becoming an orphan, so two guardians they trusted would make it safe. So my evil aunt and her evil husband had access to all documents, keys, accounts, like my Aunt X. They had secret house viewings, found a buyer, had the new buyers sign forged papers. My evil aunt forged Aunt X her signature, had the new buyers deposit the money directly to their bank account, gave the new buyers the green light to move in, went to the real estate agent and said, "We don't need you anymore, we already sold it, and here you see Aunt X signed as well." That is where the real estate agent thought it was sketchy and thought to call Aunt X to thank her for the collaboration and wish her well now that it is sold. Mind you, the new buyers of the house were also victims here. But they were given their money back and bought the house back via the correct way. Edit 2. My evil aunt said she needed some money and her husband was good with finances, so they could borrow the money, whilst my uncle would borrow the rest of the money, turn it into stock, and make profit to pay the borrowed money back. So the judge asked how much profit they intended to make before telling anyone about their scheme. Well, if you think making $50K in profit was worth stealing and lying to a 12-year-old orphan niece of yours, that is what you will pay her in extra. They never actually made any profit due to the short time period. But the family took over his investment plan, secured part of my cousin's inheritance and used a smaller part of her inheritance to invest so that my cousin could have extra passive income for the rest of her life. Smiley face. Russians of Reddit, what do you think of Wagner's rebellion? Yesterday I fall asleep at 12 p.m. GMT +3, thinking that tomorrow I'll have a great time. My friend will be graduating tomorrow and we will have a lot of fun. Today at 9 I woke up and opened the news in order. The commander of the most repulsed mercenary army, whose ads have been hanging on many banners in Russian cities, announces a lewd march on the city where I live. Russian commanders gently call for them to lay down their arms because we are brothers of the same blood. Videos arrive of ordinary civilians calling on Wagner soldiers to retreat. Anti-terrorist operation mode is announced in my city. Around the time I fell asleep, Putin's urgent address comes out. Around the same time I woke up. My family is urgently preparing documents and passports day and night. Me and my friends hear helicopters honking. The whole city is canceling graduation parties. Parks, museums and cafes are closed, as if there was a quarantine. There are bomb threats everywhere. The Wagner military units capture military facilities in 2 regions in one night. Just look at the map. It's like almost an entire state. The distance from Rostov to Voronezh is 500 kilometers. From Voronezh to Moscow is 500 kilometers. Update. Wagner has reached the Lipetsk region. That means they have to drive 400 kilometers to Moscow. Bridges are blocked. Roads linking the regions are blocked too. From Rostov the roads are closed. Faring roads around Moscow are fenced with military equipment. Rivers are blocked. Along with buses, tanks and military vehicles drive along one road. People in masks put sandbags. The whole online city map is red with stop symbols on each road leading from the south of the city to the center. The internet is up and down. The same goes for some of social networks. 17 hours have passed since the riot started. 25,000 heads of mercenary army against the forces of an entire country. Wagner suffers minimal losses. The Russian armed forces have 180 men in captivity, 3 lost helicopters and 2 armored vehicles. It's just unbelievable that there are no civilian casualties except for a couple of casualties. I didn't think the war would reach Moscow. And I didn't believe people who said that Prigozhin would stage an uprising. What do I think about the uprising? Nah, I can't think right now. I am sitting on pins and needles, waiting for the danger signal to come so I can rush out of the country at full speed. Russian here. Honestly, I don't know. But I am not siding with Wagner here. What I do know is that Wagner must lose. Prigozhin is far worse than Putin. And honestly, I don't see him winning either. Over the years, Putin has amassed so many different forces to squash any rebellion that revolution is impossible. Then, again, He was never challenged by the armed force. Overall, civilians will suffer if this doesn't end quickly. My hope is that Belarus rebels and Ukraine gains back its territory. Now seems like a perfect opportunity. I also think that marks the end of Putin too. Not in a sense that he will be toppled, but in a sense that he has now lost everything. He lost any sort of meaningful international relationships, he crushed the economy, worsened already bad demographical crisis, lost the war in Ukraine, and now gave power and guns to people he has no direct control over, and they rebelled. It's over. It was stupid to annex Crimea. It was stupid to invade Ukraine. It was stupid to arm a mercenary group. Edit. Thanks for the Marika award. El Mao edit 2. Seems like Prigozhin just ordered retreat saying they do not want to spill Russian blood. What a nice guy. I don't know what that was or what will happen next. It was unexpected, sure. But it makes sense that headed it. And the big question right now is who sides with who. Prigozhin alone cannot do much. I mean heckin' kick police who are defending Moscow ATM. Buddha doesn't have nearly enough forces to fight a civil war. However, it would be foolish to assume that all Russian elites unanimously support Putin. As for the perspective of Prigozhin taking Putin's place, he is not any better. His men are criminal sand mercenaries. Can't imagine any good coming from them. The only good thing he will bring is adequate approach to this war. Unlike Putin, Prigozhin gets information firsthand and knows how it's like on the front lines. But it can mean end of the war as well as more desperate effort to fight it. Wagner's current message is, we're out to have revenge against people who betrayed us and to Putin end to lies and corruption of Russian government. You are not our enemy, your high command is. Don't stand in our way and we will no-tharm you. And you know what? I'ma not stand in their way. Up that. Edit. Okay. Which of you MFS decided to give me a Marika award? You people are hilarious. Lol. Edit 2. After a round of negotiations, Wagner seems to have backed down. They are leaving Moscow region and Rostov city. No fighting happened, but I'm sure important things will follow after these negotiations. Rue here. To be fair, I'm too tired to think literally anything of it. It all went downhill long time ago and I can't bring myself to hope things would get better. I just want to live to see the moment when it's all over. I hope I'll get to see that day. Russian here, living in Rostov-on-Don, the city where all this mess started. Replying under my real name because UCK it. My reaction at the end of the day can be summed upus. What the UCK was that? It's late evening here, and I've been up since 7 o'clock, so I'm too tired to think rationally. Here's a dump of thoughts that I managed to squeeze out of my mildly drunk brain. First, I'm really glad that the coup didn't pan out. Because if it did pan out, we'd have a literal psychopath for a president, and that would be a fate far worse than what we currently have. Second, this isn't over. This coup attempt has completely nullified any remaining authority, respect, can't remember the right word, of Putin, Shoigu, the Minister of Defense, and Gerasimov, the Chief of the General Staff. All three have completely lost their face. Not a peep has been heard from Shoigu during all day. Gerasimov is said to be hiding somewhere in Rostov, and Putin couldn't pacify his former cook, but Lukashenko did. Plus the fact that said former cook has publicly disobeyed a direct order coming from the President of Russian Federation. Will Putin just let it slide? Will the army respect him after that? I'm grabbing moo popcorn. And third, people here just don't give a uck anymore. Everybody is just going about their business. Stores are half empty, almost nobody is stockpiling food. There is an occasional guy or two carrying a jug of water, but that's it. No stampedes, no panic. People take selfies with Wagner tanks and chat with the mercs guarding their perimeter. I guess we're too tired.